Cold open October 28th, 1944. The fog rolls across the valley like smoke from a funeral pyre. It's 6:47 a.m., somewhere in eastern France, 40 miles from the German border. The kind of morning where you can't see your own boots when you look down, where sound travels wrong, where death comes from nowhere. Corporal Ezra Thorne lies flat against cold stone. 28 years old, Pennsylvania farm boy turned infantryman. He's been in this position for 3 hours, hasn't moved, hasn't eaten, barely breathed. 400 yards down the slope, 67 German soldiers are moving through the fog. He can't see them, not yet, but he can hear them. The clink of equipment, boots on gravel, someone coughing. The sounds paint a picture in his mind. His rifle is a Springfield M1903-A4. Scope mounted, 5 rounds in the magazine, 32 more in his belt. The scope is nearly useless in this fog. Visibility may be 200 yards. On a good day, he can see 600. This is not a good day. Behind him, 70 yards back, Captain Warren Aldridge watches through binoculars. Sees nothing but gray. He thinks Ezra is insane for staying out there. But Ezra had said 3 words that morning: "I can work fog." Aldridge hadn't understood, still doesn't. But he's learned not to question the farm boy who does impossible things. The Germans are closer now, 350 yards, still invisible. Just sounds in the mist. Ezra doesn't use the scope, uses his ears, counts footsteps, tracks the cough, maps their movement in his head like plotting fence posts across a pasture. His father taught him this. Not in war, in poverty. The first German materializes out of the fog at 280 yards. Gray uniform, rifle slung, walking like a man who thinks he's safe. Ezra's finger finds the trigger. Slow, no rush, the way his father taught him, the way 14 years of hunger taught him. He squeezes. The German drops. The others don't hear the shot. The fog swallows sound. They keep walking. Ezra works the bolt. The metallic click sounds like thunder to his ears. To them, nothing. He fires again. Another German falls. They still don't understand. By the time they realize someone is killing them, 9 are down. They scatter. Ezra tracks by sound, fires into fog at targets he can't fully see. Just shapes, just movement, just math. Wind right to left, humidity high, bullet drop adjusted. He fires 21 more rounds over the next 3 hours and 40 minutes. When the fog lifts at 10:30 a.m., 29 Germans are dead. Range marks show kills from 420 yards to 650. Aldridge comes forward, looks at the bodies spread across the valley, looks at Ezra. The farm boy's hands are shaking. Not from fear, from the cold, from 4 hours lying on stone. How? Ezra doesn't answer right away. He's staring at something in the distance. A fence post. The kind his father used to teach him to measure distance. The kind that saved his family from starvation 15 years ago. My father, he finally says, he taught me to see in the dark. Aldridge doesn't understand, not yet. Not until he hears the story that started in 1930 in Pennsylvania, where poverty taught a boy that precision wasn't a skill, it was survival, cut to black. 15 years earlier, 1930, Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. The Thorne farm sits in a valley between 2 hills, 200 acres of rocky soil that fights you for every crop. Silas Thorne works land he doesn't own, sharecropping, gives 60% of every harvest to the landowner, keeps 40%, feeds a family of 3 on that 40%. His son Ezra is 14 years old, skinny, quiet, good with his hands but better with his mind. The kind of boy who counts things, counts fence posts, counts cows, counts the days between when they can afford meat. It's summer. The wheat is coming in, should be a decent harvest, except for the woodchucks. Woodchucks dig holes, hundreds of them. Across the pasture, under the wheat, the cows step in the holes, break legs. A broken cow is a dead cow. A dead cow is $100 lost. $100 is 3 months of food. Silas can't afford to lose cows, so he teaches his son to hunt. The Winchester Model 70 is older than Ezra. Bought used in 1925, the rifle cost $12. Each bullet cost 3 cents. 3 cents is a loaf of bread. Miss a shot wastes 3 cents. That's bread the family doesn't eat. Silas takes Ezra to the South Hill. They lie in the grass, look down at the pasture. 6 woodchucks feeding near their holes. 300 yards out. See the one by the fence post? Ezra nods. When you shoot, don't think about killing. Think about feeding your mother. Think about keeping the cows healthy. Think about winter. Every shot is winter. Ezra aims. The woodchuck is small, maybe 6 inches wide. He can barely see it. He fires, misses. The woodchucks disappear underground. Silas doesn't speak, just hands Ezra another bullet. 3 more cents, another loaf of bread gone. They wait an hour. The woodchucks come back. Ezra fires again. Misses. This happened 7 times that first day. 21 cents wasted, 7 loaves of bread. Ezra doesn't sleep that night. Keeps seeing the bread his family won't eat. The next day he hits one, range 280 yards. The woodchuck drops. Silas walks down, retrieves. It sells it to a restaurant for 15 cents. Net profit 12 cents? Not enough. But it's learning. By the end of summer 1930, Ezra has killed 43 woodchucks. His accuracy rate is barely 50%. But he's learning. Learning to read wind by watching grass bend. Learning to estimate distance by comparing to fence posts. Learning that poverty doesn't allow second chances. Silas gives him a notebook. Write it down. Every shot, date, wind, distance, result. Data beats talent. Ezra writes. The notebook becomes his Bible. The years pass. 1931, 1932, 1933. The Depression hits. Sharecropping gets harder. The landowner demands 65%, then 70%. Silas has to work faster, longer, push harder. Ezra keeps shooting. His accuracy climbs 60%, 70%, 80%. By 1935, he's 19 years old. He's killed 218 woodchucks, average range 340 yards. He misses maybe 1 shot in 10. The notebook is full of numbers. Wind speed, temperature, humidity, every variable that affects a bullet. He starts to see patterns. Northeast wind means aim 8 inches left at 400 yards. Morning dew means bullet drops 2 inches more. The data becomes instinct. By 1937, he can hit a woodchuck at 500 yards, consistently. His longest confirmed kill, 547 yards. A running target, led it by 4 feet. The bullet arrived exactly where he calculated. Silas watches his son become something beyond a farmer. Watches him turn poverty into precision. Watches him master a skill that seems almost supernatural. But Silas never imagines what that skill will become. March 1938. The accident. It happens on a Tuesday. Silas is working the thresher, old machine, temperamental. The belt snaps, catches his right leg, pulls him into the mechanism before he can scream. By the time Ezra reaches him, the leg is mangled below the knee, bone visible, blood everywhere. The nearest doctor is 12 miles away. The truck won't start. Ezra has to ride a horse to the neighbor's farm, borrow their truck. By the time they get Silas to the hospital, 6 hours have passed. The doctor amputates below the knee. The surgery costs $60. The Thorns don't have $60. They take a loan, 12% interest. The debt becomes a chain around Ezra's neck. Silas comes home with 1 leg and a wooden crutch. Can't work the farm anymore. Not really. Can hobble around, can supervise. But the physical labor falls to Ezra. All of it. Plowing, planting, harvesting, and killing woodchucks. Because the woodchucks don't care that Silas lost a leg. They keep digging, keep destroying, keep threatening the cows that are the only thing between the Thorns and starvation. Ezra is 22 years old. The weight of the family is on his shoulders now. Every bullet matters more than ever. Miss a shot, lose 3 cents. That's 3 cents toward the doctor's debt. That's 3 cents between his father having medicine or not. The pressure transforms him. 1938 through 1941. 3 years. Ezra kills 162 more woodchucks. His miss rate drops to almost 0. He's shooting at ranges up to 550 yards, hitting targets the size of a coffee can, in wind, in rain, in the half-light of dawn and dusk. The notebook fills with data. 380 total kills by December 1941. Average range 380 yards. He knows that number because he calculated it one sleepless night. 380 yards. 380 woodchucks. Perfect symmetry, like the universe is telling him something. Silas watches his son become a machine. Precise, efficient, emotionless. He worries. But poverty doesn't allow for emotional luxury. They need Ezra to be this, to be perfect, because perfect is the only thing that pays the debt. On cold nights, Silas sits by the fire, looks at his missing leg, looks at his son cleaning the rifle with ritualistic care, and he wonders what he's created. A provider, a protector, or something else, something harder, something that traded boyhood for survival. December 7th, 1941. The radio is on when the news breaks. Pearl Harbor, Japanese attack, thousands dead, America at war. Ezra is in the barn cleaning the Winchester. He hears the broadcast through the open door, walks to the house. Silas is sitting at the table. Face gray. He knows what's coming. You're going to go. It's not a question. Ezra nods. Silas is quiet for a long time. Then you spent 14 years learning precision because I couldn't afford to let you waste bullets. Now you're going to use that precision to waste men. That's what war is, son. Waste, but necessary waste. I have to go. I know, and I'm telling you to go because that precision needs a purpose beyond keeping cows from breaking legs. It needs to mean something bigger than this farm. Bigger than me. Ezra enlists on December 10th, 3 days after Pearl Harbor. The recruiter asks if he has any special skills. Ezra says he can shoot. The recruiter marks a box. Thousands of boys are saying the same thing. Boot camp won't be until March 1943, 15 months away. The Army is overwhelmed, processing millions of men. Ezra has to wait. He spends those 14 months on the farm, working, shooting, taking care of Silas. The leg is getting worse. Infection keeps coming back. The doctor says it's from the original injury, tissue that never healed right. They give Silas pills. The pills help for a while, then they don't. By January 1943, Silas is bedridden. The infection is in his blood now. Sepsis. The doctor says there's nothing to do, maybe a week, maybe two. Ezra's orders arrive February 28th. Report to Fort Dix, New Jersey, March 15th. Silas dies March 4th, 11 days before Ezra ships out. The timing feels like cruelty, like the universe is teaching him one final lesson about waste. The funeral is small, neighbors, a few distant relatives. The pastor says Silas was a good man, hard worker, devoted father. The words feel hollow. Ezra stands there thinking about fence posts and woodchucks and the $11 still owed on his father's leg. After they bury Silas, Ezra goes to the South Hill, the place where his father first taught him to shoot. He brings the Winchester, brings the notebook, sits on the cold ground and looks down at the pasture. A woodchuck is feeding near the fence post. 420 yards, light wind. Ezra doesn't aim, just watches. The woodchuck eats, digs, disappears into its hole. Ezra doesn't shoot. He thinks about his father's words. Precision needs a purpose. He thinks about 14 years of data, 380 kills, numbers in a notebook that mean everything and nothing. He thinks about war, about using this skill to kill men instead of animals, about whether there's honor in that, about whether his father would be proud or horrified. He doesn't have answers, just the rifle, just the notebook, just the weight of 14 years pressing on his shoulders. He leaves the hill, packs his bag. On March 15th, 1943, he boards a bus to Fort Dix, brings nothing but clothes in the notebook, leaves the Winchester behind. The Army will give him a different rifle, a rifle meant for men. March 1943, Fort Dix, New Jersey. Boot camp is 8 weeks. Ezra is 27 years old. Most of the other recruits are 18, 19. They look at him like he's ancient. The drill sergeants don't care about age. They care about performance. Ezra performs, not spectacularly, just competently. He's used to hard work, used to following orders. The physical training is nothing compared to 14-hour days on a farm. Week 5, rifle qualification. The range is 200 yards. Standard targets, the other recruits are nervous. Ezra is calm. 200 yards is close, almost insultingly close, like asking a man who can read to identify the alphabet. He fires 10 rounds, 10 hits, center mass, everyone. The sergeant notices. Thorne, you hunt? Yes, Sergeant. What range at 3 to 500 yards, Sergeant? The sergeant laughs. Bullshit. Nobody shoots consistent at 500. Woodchuck, Sergeant, 14 years, Pennsylvania. The laugh stops. The sergeant looks at Ezra's target again, looks at the tight grouping. You ever think about sniper school? No, Sergeant. Well, think about it now. They test Bereshberg at 300 yards. He hits 8 out of 10. Not perfect. The rifle is different from his Winchester. The scope is unfamiliar, but it's close enough. The sergeant writes a recommendation. 2 weeks later, Ezra sits for a sniper school interview. The interviewing officer is a captain, young, maybe 30, West Point educated. He looks at Ezra's file, looks at Ezra, frowns. You're 27. Yes, sir. Snipers are usually 18 to 22, younger eyes, faster reflexes. I've been shooting since I was 14, sir. At what? Woodchucks, 4 to 500 yards, killed 380 over 14 years. The captain smirks. Woodchucks don't shoot back. No, sir, but they're 6 inches wide. A man's helmet is 18 inches. Bigger target, same principles. The captain considers this, looks at the qualification scores, looks at the sergeant's recommendation, then shakes his head. You're too old. Sniper training is physically demanding. We need men who can move fast, think fast. Farm boys with good aim are fine for infantry, but special operations requires youth. The rejection is polite but final. Ezra is assigned to regular infantry, 28th Division. They'll ship to England in July 1944. He doesn't argue, doesn't complain, just nods and leaves. In his mind, he calculates. 27 years old, 14 years of experience. 380 confirmed kills on targets smaller than a man's head at ranges longer than Army doctrine considers possible. And they said he's too old. The irony will become apparent later, in France, when age and experience prove to be the only things that matter. July 1944, crossing the ship to England takes 12 days. Ezra shares a bunk with 90 other men. Cramped, loud, the smell of sweat and sea salt and fear. He meets 2 men who will matter. Clarence Brennan, everyone calls him Clay, 22 years old. Brooklyn, big smile, endless optimism, the kind of soldier who makes friends with everyone. He talks constantly about baseball, about girls, about what he'll do after the war. Ezra mostly listens. Luther Grimshaw, 29, Montana, hunter, trapper, quiet like Ezra but in a different way. Luther's silence is territorial. Ezra's is habitual. They recognize something in each other. 2 men who learn to shoot out of necessity, not sport. One night crossing the Atlantic, they're playing cards. Clay is winning, talking about a girl named Marie back in Brooklyn. Luther is losing, silent. Ezra is breaking even. Clay looks at Ezra. You don't talk much. What's your story? Farmer, Pennsylvania. That's it, just farmer. That's it, Luther interrupts. You hunt? Some. What kind? Woodchucks, varmints. Luther snorts. Varmints. I tracked elk through 3 feet of snow for 5 days once. Mile-long shots. Moving targets. That's hunting. Ezra doesn't respond. Doesn't need to prove anything. Clay senses tension, changes the subject. But Luther remembers. Remembers the farm boy who thinks shooting rats is the same as real hunting. He'll learn differently. They all will. England is brief. Training, logistics, waiting. Then early July they ship to Normandy. The beachhead is already secured. The hedgerows are next. The 28th Division pushes inland, slow, bloody. Every field is a fortress. Every hedge hides a machine gun. Ezra learns that long-range shooting doesn't matter in the hedgerows. Everything is close. 30 yards, 50, sometimes 10. You see the enemy's face when you kill him. It's nothing like woodchucks. Nothing like the distance that made death abstract. Clay takes to it better. He's young, adaptable, makes jokes even when mortars are falling. Luther struggles. He's used to hunting at range. Patient stalking. This is chaos. Speed. Violence up close. Ezra does what he's told. Fires when ordered. Moves when ordered. Swampias. But the skill his father gave him sits unused. A precision instrument in a job that requires a hammer. By September, they've pushed east, out of the hedgerows, into open country, rolling farmland, long sightlines, valleys and hills. The terrain changes, and with it, Ezra's usefulness. Captain Warren Aldridge notices. Aldridge is 32, career officer, smart enough to recognize when doctrine doesn't fit reality. He watches Ezra during a rest period, sees him studying the landscape, calculating distances, comparing features to fence posts. Thorne, you said you hunted at long range. Yes, sir. How long? 500 yards, sometimes more. Aldridge looks at the valley ahead. German positions on the opposite ridge, maybe 600 yards across, too far for standard rifle fire. They'll need mortars or artillery, or they wait for the Germans to come closer. Or, tomorrow we're holding this ridge. If the Germans come across that valley, think you could hit them. Ezra looks at the valley, measures it in his mind. Fence posts, pasture, woodchucks. Yes, sir, I could. Aldridge doesn't believe him. Not entirely, but he files it away just in case. September 14th is coming, and with it, the moment when 14 years of poverty and precision will collide with 80 men walking across an open valley. The moment when everyone will learn that the farm boy they rejected from sniper school can do things the doctrine says are impossible. The moment when Ezra Thorne will stop being a farmer with a rifle and become something the Germans will whisper about in fear. The Pennsylvania Ghost. September 14th, 1944 to 2:43 p.m. The valley is 800 yards wide. Open farmland, harvested wheat, stone walls cutting across at intervals. Scattered trees, mostly clear. Ezra lies behind a low stone wall on the ridge. Clay Brennan is beside him, binoculars up. Luther Grimshaw is 20 yards to the left with the squad's Browning automatic rifle. Captain Aldridge is behind them watching. Across the valley, 80 German infantry emerge from the tree line. They're walking, not running, rifles slung, loose formation. The kind of movement that says they think they're safe. They're advancing toward a farm complex in the center of the valley. Stone buildings, good defensive position. If they reach it, they can fire on the American ridge. Make it hard to hold. Aldridge has already called for artillery, 20 minutes out, maybe 25. By then the Germans will be in the buildings, dug in, costly to remove. Clay lowers the binoculars. Lead element is 480 yards. Ezra already knows. He measured it by fence posts, by the stone wall intervals, by the tree spacing, his father's methods, the methods that don't need binoculars. I can hit them. Aldridge heard this yesterday, didn't fully believe it, but now watching 80 men walk across open ground, he's willing to try anything. One shot Thorne. If you miss, we wait for artillery. If you hit, he pauses. If you hit, keep shooting until they're down or they're gone. Clay sets up as a spotter, calls wind, 3 miles per hour, left to right. Ezra doesn't need the confirmation. He can see it in the grass, feel it on his face. Same wind he felt 1,000 times on the South Hill. Watching woodchucks feed, calculating the drift, the drop, the intersection of bullet and target. The lead German is 475 yards now, still walking. Ezra picks him, adjusts the scope, aims 2 feet left of center mass, holds his breath, squeezes. The German drops. The others keep walking. They didn't hear the shot. The distance swallowed the sound. They think their comrade stumbled. Maybe a heart attack. Maybe the heat. Ezra works the bolt. Smooth. Practiced. 14 years of muscle memory. Chambers another round. Picks the next German. 460 yards. Fires. That one drops too. Now the Germans notice. 2 men down. They start looking around, confused. Standard doctrine says rifle fire comes from 300 yards or closer. They're 450 yards from the American ridge. Too far. Possible range, they keep advancing. Ezra fires again. Third German down at 440 yards. Now they understand. Someone is shooting. They start running, looking for cover. The nearest cover is a stone wall 100 yards ahead. They sprint for it. Ezra fires 4 more times in 30 seconds. 4 more Germans drop. The rest reach the wall. 43 men down, 37 pinned. They're at 420 yards now. Still too far for their Kar 98K rifles, but they fire anyway. Desperation shooting. The rounds fall short, kick up dirt 100 yards in front of the American position. Clay is watching through binoculars, counting. 7 down, Jesus Christ, 7 down, and they can't even see where you're shooting from. Ezra doesn't respond. He's watching the wall, 420 yards. He can see individual stones through the scope. Any movement, he'll catch it. 2 minutes pass. A German raises his head, just a peek, checking if the shooting stopped. Ezra fires. The German's head snaps back. He drops. Clay flinches. 8. The Germans stay down. 3 minutes of silence. Then another one peeks over. Not the same spot. 30 feet to the left. Thinks he's being clever. Ezra tracks. Fires. 9. Clay's voice is quieter now. 9 in 6 minutes, all over 400 yards. Luther has moved closer, watching. The skepticism is gone from his face, replaced by something else. Not quite fear, not quite respect. Something in between. Aldridge is still behind them, silent. He's seen a lot in this war. Seen brave men, skilled men, but he's never seen this. This isn't bravery, it's something colder. Something that looks like mathematics made lethal. The Germans stay pinned for 15 minutes. Then they try again. 20 men break from the wall, running for the farm buildings, 200 yards of open ground, 20 seconds of exposure. Maximum. Ezra fires 6 times, 5 Germans drop. The other 15 make it to the buildings. Now the Germans are split. 15 in the buildings at 380 yards. 56 still behind the wall at 420. Both groups pinned by 1 man. Clay is saying something. Ezra doesn't hear it. He's focused on the wall, on the buildings, on the math. 56 plus 15 equals 71. Minus the 9 already dead, 80 total. He's killed 11% of them in 10 minutes. Then it happens. The thing that will change everything. A German at the wall fires, not at Ezra, at Clay. The range is too far for accuracy, but luck doesn't care about range. The bullet hits the stone wall 2 inches from Clay's head. A fragment of stone breaks off, sharp, fast, catches Clay in the neck. Arterial bleed, bright red, pulsing. Clay drops the binoculars, grabs his neck, blood between his fingers. His eyes go wide. Not pain yet, just shock. Luther is moving before Ezra can react. Drops the bar, grabs Clay, presses both hands against the wound. Medic, medic. Clay is making a sound, not words, just a gurgling. He's looking at Ezra, trying to say something, can't. Luther drags him back, away from the wall, away from the firing line. A medic appears, takes over. Luther looks at Ezra. I'm going with him. You good? Ezra nods. Luther hesitates. You sure? Another nod. Luther runs, follows the medic carrying Clay, disappears over the ridge. Ezra is alone now. No spotter, no backup. Just him and 71 Germans and a rifle and 14 years of data in his head. He should fall back. Wait for artillery. That's doctrine, that's sense. But the Germans are still there. Still a threat. And Ezra knows something the doctrine doesn't. He knows that he can work alone. He's been working alone since his father lost his leg. Since poverty made solo competence a requirement for survival. He checks his ammunition. 23 rounds left. 71 Germans. The math doesn't favor him. But math was never the only factor. There's also wind, distance, fear, confusion. The psychological weight of being killed by an invisible enemy at impossible range. Ezra settles back behind the wall. Takes a breath. His hands are shaking. Not fear. Not yet. Just the adrenaline from watching Clay go down. From being alone. He thinks about his father. thinks about the South Hill, about watching woodchucks and counting fence posts and writing numbers in a notebook because data beats talent. Dad, he whispers, if you can see this, if you're watching, I hope to God this is what you meant by purpose. He picks up the rifle, looks through the scope, finds the wall, waits. 3 minutes later, a German moves. Ezra fires. 10 down. The Germans try advancing again at 3:15 p.m. 10 men run from the wall, not toward the buildings, back toward their own ridge, retreating. They've had enough. 45 minutes of being picked off by a ghost. Time to leave. Ezra tracks them. They're running away, range increasing, started at 420 yards, now 450, now 480. He picks the rearmost runner, leads him by 3 feet, fires. The German falls at 490 yards, works the bolt, picks the next runner, now at 510 yards, leads him by 4 feet, adjusts for the increasing distance, fires, down. The remaining 8 make it back. Ezra has killed 12, 69 Germans left, 54 behind the wall, 15 in the buildings. Aldridge appears beside him. Low crawl, stays below the wall line. Brennan, alive. Luther took him back. You're alone. Yes, sir. Pull back. Artillery's 10 minutes out. Respectfully, sir, I can hold them here. Aldridge looks at Ezra, really looks at him, sees something in his face, not excitement, not rage, just a kind of cold focus. The face of a man who's been doing impossible things for so long, it became routine. 10 more minutes, then we pull back whether they're dead or not. Yes, sir. Aldridge crawls away. Ezra is alone again. He waits. The Germans are learning. They're not moving anymore, just staying down, waiting for dark, waiting for the American sniper to run out of ammunition or patience or nerve. They don't understand that patience is the one thing Ezra has in infinite supply. 14 years of waiting for woodchucks to peek out of holes. Hours spent motionless. Days, weeks, all adding up to this, to the ability to simply wait. At 3:47 p.m., the Germans make their mistake. All of them, at once. Coordinated. A rush. From the wall and from the buildings. Simultaneous. Toward the American ridge. 69 men running across open ground, thinking that volume will overwhelm the lone shooter. Ezra fires 11 times in 40 seconds. 8 Germans drop, ranges from 420 to 580 yards. But 8 isn't enough. The others keep coming, getting closer. 300 yards now, 280, within range of their own rifles. Then the artillery arrives. Shells scream overhead, impact in the valley, near the wall, near the buildings. The Germans scatter. Some run forward, some run back, some just freeze. Ezra keeps firing. Through the artillery, through the smoke, through the case. He's not thinking anymore, just acting. Muscle memory, data, calculation. The machine his father built operating at full capacity. 3 more Germans fall, then 2 more. Then 1, and then the last one, 600 yards out, sprinting, full speed, away from the artillery, away from the ridge, away from the ghost who's been killing them for an hour. Ezra tracks him, leads him by 4 feet. Adjusts for distance, for wind, for the fact that the German is running downhill, which changes the angle, which changes the drop. All of this happens in less than 2 seconds. 14 years of training compressed into 1 moment. 1 calculation, 1 squeeze. He fires. The bullet travels for almost 2 full seconds, crosses 600 yards, drops 38 inches from boreline, drifts 11 inches right in the wind, catches the German mid-stride, center mass. The German's legs keep running for half a step. Then physics takes over. He tumbles, rolls, stops, 582 yards, running target, longest shot of the day. Ezra lowers the rifle. His hands are shaking again. Worse now. He looks down at them. Can't make them stop. The artillery continues for another 3 minutes, then silence. Smoke drifts across the valley. The Germans who survived are gone. Back to their ridge. Broken, scattered. Aldridge appears again, this time standing. The threat is over. He's counting bodies. scattered across the valley, some near the wall, some in the open, some near the buildings, and one very far away, almost at the German tree line. How many? Ezra has to think. 11 before Clay got hit, 12 during the solo work, 11 during the final rush. 34, sir. 34. Aldridge repeats it like he's tasting the words, testing if they're real. In 3 hours, all at 400 yards plus. Yes, sir. The last one. How far? 582. Aldridge walks to the edge of the ridge, looks at the body in the distance, looks back at Ezra. Running. Yes, sir. For a long time, Aldridge doesn't speak, just stands there, looking at the valley, looking at what one farm boy with a rifle did to 80 trained soldiers. Finally, I'm going to write this up. Division won't believe it, but I'm writing it anyway. Luther returns 20 minutes later. Without Clay, his hands are still red. He walks to Ezra, doesn't say anything, just nods, then sits down against the wall. After a while, Clay's alive. They got the bleeding stopped, but he can't talk. Vocal cords damaged, might never talk again. Ezra doesn't respond, doesn't know how. Luther looks at the valley, at the bodies. How many after I left? 23. Jesus, 23, alone. Luther shakes his head. I called you a rat shooter. I'm sorry. You didn't know. No, but I do now. Luther stands, offers his hand. Ezra takes it. They shake, a handshake that means everything and nothing. Respect between two men who understand what skill costs. That night, Ezra can't sleep. He lies in his foxhole, stares at the sky, keeps seeing faces. Not all 34, just one. The young German, the one at 440 yards, the one whose face he saw clearly through the scope right before pulling the trigger. 18 years old, maybe 19. Scared eyes, too young for the uniform, too young for the war. Just a kid following orders. A kid who died because Ezra's father taught him to hit 6-inch targets at 500 yards. Ezra rolls over, vomits into the dirt. Not from fear, not from disgust, from the weight. The sudden crushing weight of understanding what he's become. A precision instrument for killing. A machine his father built without knowing what it would be used for. He vomits again. Nothing comes up, just dry heaves, his body trying to expel something that can't be expelled. Luther hears, comes over, sits on the edge of the foxhole, doesn't speak, just sits. Presence without pressure. After a while, Ezra's voice, quiet, broken. I saw his face, the young one. I saw his face and I shot him anyway. How old? 18, maybe? Luther nods. In Montana, I shot a wolf once. She had pups. I didn't know until after. Found them in the den, 3 of them, starved to death without their mother. He's quiet. Some were just doing what they had to do. Some were just kids. Doesn't make it easier. Doesn't make it right. Just makes it what it is. What is it? War. The thing that turns farmers into killers and calls it necessary. They sit in silence. The night presses down. Somewhere in the distance, artillery. Someone else's battle. Someone else's calculations of death. Ezra thinks about his father, about the notebook, about 380 woodchucks and whether any of it prepared him for this. For the weight of killing men. For seeing faces through a scope and firing anyway. He doesn't sleep that night, or the next, or the one after that. But when dawn comes on September 15th, when Aldridge tells him there are more Germans across another valley, Ezra picks up his rifle. Because precision doesn't stop just because it learned guilt. Purpose doesn't pause just because it discovered cost. The machine keeps running, even when the boy inside it wants to stop. Especially then. October 28th, 1944. The fog, we return to where we began, 6:47 in the morning, Eastern France. The fog is so thick Ezra can't see his own boots. Visibility may be 200 yards on a generous estimate. More like 150 in practice. Captain Aldridge had wanted to wait. Let the fog burn off. Attack at noon when you can see the enemy. That's doctrine. That's sense. But Ezra had said 3 words. I can work fog. Aldridge remembered September 14th. Remembered 34 Germans dead at impossible range. Remembered the farm boy who does things the manual says are impossible. So he agreed, against his better judgment, against doctrine, against everything West Point taught him. Ezra has been in position for 3 hours, hasn't moved, hasn't eaten. He's listening. The Germans are down there, 67 of them according to intelligence, moving through the fog, repositioning. They think they're invisible. They don't understand that Ezra learned to hunt in conditions where seeing was secondary. His father taught him that. On mornings when fog rolled through the Pennsylvania valleys, when you couldn't see the woodchucks, had to track them by sound, by the rustle of grass, by the faint scratching of claws on stone, had to build a picture in your mind from audio cues alone. Poverty doesn't let you wait for perfect conditions. You hunt when you can. You adapt. You develop skills that don't rely on eyes. Ezra hears them now. The clink of equipment, boots on gravel, someone coughing. He's mapping their positions in his head, building a tactical picture from sound, counting footsteps, estimating distances by the delay between sound and echo, using the same methods he used to track woodchucks in morning mist. The first German appears at 280 yards, just a shape, a gray outline in the gray fog, walking like a man who thinks he's safe. Ezra fires. The shape drops. The others don't react. The fog swallows the sound. They keep moving. Ezra works the bolt, fires again. Another shape falls. By the time they understand what's happening, 9 are down. Then they scatter. Ezra can't see them anymore. Just shapes in the fog. Movement without form, but he can hear them. Running, shouting. The panic that comes from being killed by something you can't see. He tracks by sound. Fires into the fog at targets he can't fully see. Just shapes, just calculations. The bullet intersects with the target 200 milliseconds after the trigger pull. That's enough time for a running man to move 2 feet. So lead by 2 feet. Adjust for wind, for humidity, for the fact that cold fog makes air denser, which slows the bullet, which increases drop. All of this happens automatically. 14 years of data compressed into instinct. His conscious mind isn't calculating. It's just pulling the trigger. The rest is muscle memory and mathematics. He fires 21 more rounds over the next 3 hours and 40 minutes. When the fog lifts at 10:30, 29 Germans are dead. The range marks show kills from 420 yards to 650. Aldridge comes forward, stares at the bodies, stares at Ezra. The farm boy is shaking from 4 hours on cold stone. His face is blank, emotionless, the machine running on autopilot. How Ezra takes a long time to answer. When he does, his voice is distant, like he's speaking from somewhere far away. My father taught me to see in the dark. He didn't know he was teaching me to kill in the vein, but the skills are the same. Aldridge wants to ask more, wants to understand how a human being can do this. But he's starting to realize that maybe Ezra isn't fully human anymore. Or maybe he's too human. So human that he turns survival into an art form and that art into a weapon. Luther finds Ezra an hour later, brings him coffee, sits beside him. They don't speak. Just sit. 2 hunters who understand that some skills carry costs the world doesn't see. That night, Ezra writes in his notebook. The same notebook his father gave him. Date, weather, range, results, 29 confirmed, no emotion, no reflection, just data. And total kills since September 89. Average engagement range 430 yards. The doctrine says 300 is maximum effective range. Ezra has proven the doctrine wrong 89 times, but he takes no pride in it, because each number in the notebook is a face. A young German at 440 yards, a runner at 582, 29 shapes in the fog who never saw their killer. He closes the notebook, tries to sleep, can't, won't sleep well for the next 54 years. November 1944. The Metal Division headquarters sends an officer to interview Ezra. Major Westfield, career military, 38 years old, decorated veteran of North Africa. He's seen combat, seen skilled soldiers. But the report on Corporal Ezra Thorne doesn't make sense. 89 confirmed kills. Average range 430 yards. Maximum range 650 yards in fog. Solo engagements. No spotter. Multiple instances of violating doctrine and succeeding anyway. Westfield sits across from Ezra in a cold tent, studies him, sees a thin farm boy with hollow eyes, 28 years old but looks 40, the kind of aging that comes from carrying weight no one else can see. The captain's report says you killed 89 enemy combatants over 2 months. Yes, sir. At ranges the manual says are impossible. The manual wasn't written by men who had to feed their families on one shot per animal, sir. Westfield blinks, looks at his notes, looks back at Ezra. Explain. So Ezra does. Tells him about sharecropping, about Silas losing his leg, about 14 years of woodchuck hunting where every bullet cost 3 cents and 3 cents was bread the family wouldn't eat, about the notebook, the data, the fence posts and wind patterns and the mathematics of desperation. Westfield listens, doesn't interrupt. When Ezra finishes, the major is quiet for a long time. We're recommending you for the Medal of Honor. No, excuse me, I'm refusing, sir. Westfield's face hardens. You can't refuse. This isn't optional. You've performed acts of extraordinary valor under fire. You've changed the tactical situation in multiple engagements. You've saved American lives. I killed 89 men efficiently, sir. That's not valor. That's just poverty turned into a weapon. My father taught me precision so cows wouldn't break their legs. The Army used that precision to kill Germans. There's no honor in being efficient at death. That's not for you to decide. Respectfully, sir, it is, because I'm the one who has to live with it. I'm the one who sees their faces when I close my eyes. I'm the one who knows that some of them were just 18-year-old kids following orders. Giving me a medal doesn't change what I did. It just makes everyone else feel better about using me. Westfield is silent. He's never heard a soldier talk like this. Most men want the recognition, want the validation. This one is rejecting it, and his reasoning is sound, uncomfortably sound. What do you want? To go home, sir, to stop killing people, to try to remember what it felt like before I turned 14 and started shooting living things for money. Westfield writes something in his file, closes it, stands. The Army is changing its doctrine on maximum engagement range, from 300 yards to 500, based on your methods. That's your legacy, whether you want it or not. Legacy, sir, is just another word for teaching other people to kill better. I don't want it. Westfield leaves. The Medal of Honor recommendation is quietly withdrawn. Instead, Ezra receives a Purple Heart, not for wounds, for the psychological cost that everyone can see but no one knows how to name. The doctrine change goes through in January 1945. Sniper training is updated. Maximum engagement range increased. Woodchuck hunting is mentioned as ideal preparation. Small targets, long range, one-shot discipline. Ezra's name appears nowhere in the documentation. Exactly how he wants it. 1946, the return. Ezra comes home to Pennsylvania in March. The farm is gone. Sold to pay Silas's medical debts. The landowner took back the acreage. The house was auctioned. Everything that was home is now owned by strangers. Ezra stands on the South Hill, the place where his father taught him to shoot. The fence posts are still there. The pasture is still there, but it's not his anymore. He has $47 in his pocket, a train ticket back to Lancaster, and a notebook full of numbers that mean everything and nothing. He can't go back to farming, doesn't have land, doesn't have capital, doesn't have the will to rebuild what poverty took and war finished destroying. So he goes down, into the earth, becomes a coal miner. The mines are hiring, the war created demand. Coal for steel, steel for rebuilding. They don't ask questions, don't care about your history, just if you can swing a pick and survive the dark. Ezra can survive the dark. He's been surviving it since September 14th. The work is hard, dangerous. The tunnels are narrow, enclosed, dark except for headlamps. The walls press in. You can't see more than 20 feet ahead. Every shift, Ezra feels the panic rising. The confined space triggers something, reminds him of the foxhole, of the valley, of lying behind stone walls while mortars fall, of the sound Germans make when they die at 500 yards. But he doesn't quit. Coal mining is honest work, simple work. You swing a pick, coal comes out. No one dies, no precision required, no wind calculations, no target acquisition, Just muscle and darkness and the certainty that down here, he's not ending lives. He meets Ruth in 1947. She works at the company store. 23 years old, kind eyes. She doesn't ask about the war, doesn't push, just accepts that Ezra is a quiet man who works hard and doesn't talk about where the shadows in his eyes come from. They marry in November. Small ceremony, no family. Ruth's parents are dead. Ezra's father is dead. Luther sends a telegram. Clay sends a card with no words, just his name. He still can't speak. They have two children, Silas, the second born 1950. Eleanor, born 1952. Ezra is a good father, patient, gentle. He teaches them to work hard, to value precision, but he never teaches them to shoot, never lets them touch a rifle. When Silas asks why, Ezra just says, some skills are better left unlearned. The nightmares start in 1947, get worse over time. Every September 14th, Ezra wakes at 2:43 a.m., shaking, sweating, seeing the young German's face, hearing the impact at 440 yards, a sound he shouldn't be able to hear but does. Ruth learns not to touch him when he wakes like this, just sits nearby, waits for him to come back. He never tells her details, just says bad dreams. Everyone who was there has them. But these aren't normal bad dreams. These are specific, precise, the same faces, the same ranges, 380 yards, 420, 582. The numbers his father taught him to love now haunt him with mathematical exactness. Clay writes letters, monthly. The handwriting is shaky. The sentences are simple. Clay still can't speak. The throat wound healed, but the vocal cords are damaged beyond repair. He writes about Brooklyn, about his family, about baseball, about anything except the war. Ezra never replies, not once, keeps the letters in a box, reads them, but can't bring himself to write back. Because what would he say that he still sees the stone fragment that hit Clay's neck, that he still hears the gurgling sound Clay made, that some nights he wakes up convinced he could have prevented it if he'd just been faster. Luther visits once. In 1960, shows up at the mine. They sit in Ezra's truck. Don't talk much. Luther has a ranch in Montana now, raises cattle. He's doing okay. Has nightmares too. Different ones, but the same weight. You ever regret it? Luther asks. What we did, Ezra thinks for a long time. I regret that I was good at it. If I'd been mediocre, I could tell myself I did my best. But I was perfect. And perfect means I can't hide behind incompetence. Every one of those 89 I meant. I calculated. I executed. There's no refuge in I tried. Luther nods. They sit in silence. 20 minutes later, he leaves. They never see each other again. 1957, the historian. A military historian finds Ezra, Professor Marcus Green, writing a book about unconventional tactics in World War II. He's heard about the Pennsylvania farm boy who killed at ranges doctrine said were impossible. He drives to the mine, waits at the entrance. When Ezra emerges at shift change covered in coal dust, Green approaches. Corporal Thorne. Ezra keeps walking. I'm writing about September 14th, about what you did. I'd like to interview you. No. It's important. Your methods change sniper doctrine. Soldiers today are trained differently because of you, the Army. Ezra stops, turns. His face is black with coal dust. Only his eyes are clear. Cold. The Army learned to kill more efficiently. That's not something to be proud of. That's not something to write books about. That's just death becoming data. I'm not interested in being remembered for that. But the historical record can say I was infantry. That's all. Because that's all that matters. I served. I survived. I came home. End of story. Green tries again. Your children should know. My children should know their father worked hard and loved them. That's all. They don't need to know I was good at killing. No child needs to know that about their father. Ezra walks away, gets in his truck, drives home. That night, Ruth asks who the man was. Ezra says nobody, selling something. She doesn't push. She's learned when to push and when to let silence do its work. The children never learn about September 14th, about 89 kills, about the doctrine change, about any of it. They grow up thinking their father is a coal miner who fought in the war like everyone else's fathers. Normal, ordinary, unremarkable. Exactly how Ezra wants it. 1998, the end. October 15th, Ezra is 82 years old, still working the mine. Light duty now, equipment maintenance. They keep him on because he's reliable. Because 52 years of showing up counts for something. The roof collapse happens at 2:17 p.m. Support beam fails. Section C tunnel. Ezra is there, checking a pump. Doesn't see it coming. Doesn't hear the crack. Just sudden darkness and weight in pain. They pull him out 20 minutes later. Still alive. Barely. Crushed chest, internal bleeding. He's conscious but fading. The ambulance takes him to Lancaster General. Ruth arrives, Silas arrives, Eleanor arrives. They're there when he dies at 4:38 p.m. His last words are to Ruth, whispered. Tell them I'm sorry I never told them. Tell them their grandfather would have been proud. Not of the killing, of the precision, of using poverty to build something, even if that something was wrong. Ruth doesn't understand. Silas doesn't understand. Eleanor doesn't understand. Ezra dies with his secrets intact. The funeral is small. Miners' Union sends representatives, a few neighbors. Clay doesn't come. He died in 1994. Luther is too sick to travel. The pastor says Ezra was a good man, hard worker, devoted husband, loving father, World War II veteran, served with honor. The obituary in the Lancaster newspaper is 4 sentences. No mention of 89 kills, no mention of doctrine changes. Just Ezra Thorne, 82 coal miner, died October 15th. Survived by wife Ruth's son Silas, daughter Eleanor. Veteran 28th Infantry Division. Services private. They bury him next to Silas. Father and son, the man who taught precision and the man who weaponized it. Together in Pennsylvania soil. Ruth goes home, starts going through Ezra's things. There's not much. Work clothes, a few books, a box of letters from Clay, unopened for years, and a notebook. Old, leather-bound, pages yellow with age. She opens it, sees numbers, dates, ranges, results, hundreds of entries from 1930 to 1941. Then a gap, then more entries. September 1944 through November 1944. Different handwriting. Rushed. Military notation. She doesn't understand what she's looking at, puts it aside. The letter 1 week after the funeral mail comes. Official envelope. Department of Veterans Affairs. Addressed to Corporal Ezra Thorne. Ruth opens it. Clerical error. The letter should have arrived months ago. Got lost in bureaucracy. Finally processed. It's a notification. The Army is conducting a review of World War II citations. Belated recognitions for soldiers whose actions weren't properly documented. Corporal Ezra Thorne is eligible for citation based on records showing 89 confirmed enemy kills at extended-range tactical innovations that influenced doctrine changes and sustained combat effectiveness under adverse conditions. The letter includes details. September 14th, October 28th, November 12th, ranges, conditions, outcomes. Ruth reads it 3 times. Doesn't believe it. Calls Silas. Silas reads it, calls Eleanor. They sit at the kitchen table, staring at the letter, at the notebook, at the numbers that suddenly make terrible sense. Dad killed 89 people. Silas says it out loud, testing if the words are real. Eleanor is crying, and never told us. Ruth is quiet, thinking about 51 years of marriage, 51 years of nightmares every September 14th. 51 years of Ezra waking at 2:43 a.m. shaking. 51 years of silence. He told me, she says softly. Not with words, but he told me. Every nightmare, every time he looked at his hands like they were strangers. Every time he refused to teach you how to shoot. He was telling us, we just didn't know the language. They sit in silence. Outside Pennsylvania hills roll into the distance. Fence posts mark the pastures. The same post Silas Thorne used to teach his son to measure death. 2003, The Legacy. The United Mine Workers, Local 17. O2 names their annual safety award the Thorne Award. The ceremony is small. Ruth is there, Silas, Eleanor, a few old miners who worked with Ezra. The plaque is simple, precision in darkness, Ezra Thorne, 1916 to 1998. No mention of war, no mention of kills, just precision and darkness. The two things that defined him. A reporter asks Ruth what Ezra would think of the honor. She considers, he'd say it's too much, that he was just doing his job. That precision isn't special, it's just poverty teaching you not to waste bullets. Bullets, Ruth smiles, sad. He used to say that, don't waste bullets. I didn't understand until after he died. He meant everything. Opportunities, movements, words. He lived like a man who couldn't afford to miss, because for 14 years he couldn't. Ruth keeps the VA letter in the same box as Clay's unopened letters. Doesn't frame it, doesn't show visitors, just keeps it. A piece of paper that explains 51 years of nightmares. 51 years of a man who looked at his hands like they belonged to someone else. She doesn't need the letter to know who Ezra was. She knew. She always knew. The letter just gave the silence a vocabulary. Epilogue, the fence posts still stand on the South Hill, looking down at the pasture where Silas Thorne taught his son to turn poverty into precision, where 14 years of data became 14 seconds of decision, where a farm boy learned to see in the dark and later used that skill to kill in the fog. Woodchucks still graze there, small shapes, 6 inches wide, unremarkable. Somewhere in a government archive a file exists. Corporal Ezra Thorne, 89 confirmed, 430-yard average. Doctrine change recommended. Subject deceased. Somewhere in a box in Silas II's attic, a notebook holds numbers. 380 woodchucks, 89 Germans, the same handwriting, the same precision. Just different targets. Somewhere in a cemetery, 2 stones stand side by side. Silas Thorne, Ezra Thorne, father and son, the teacher and the weapon he never meant to create. And somewhere in the Pennsylvania hills, the wind blows through grass, bends it, shows direction, shows strength, shows everything a patient man needs to know to kill at 500 yards. The grass doesn't care that Ezra is dead, doesn't care that he turned precision into nightmares, doesn't care that 89 men died because poverty taught a boy not to waste bullets. The grass just bends, the wind just blows, the fence posts just stand, measuring distances no one needs to measure anymore, except in memory, where September 14th plays forever, where fog never lifts, where 29 shapes fall, and a farm boy becomes a ghost, the Pennsylvania ghost, who learned to see in the dark, who killed in the forest and in awe, who refused the metal, who carried the weight, who went home to the mines, who died with his precision intact and his secrets buried, who wanted only to be forgotten, and almost was, almost.